Hello everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to show you a very quick demo on how to achieve realistic waterfall effects with colored pencils. Now, while the demo is quick, the process itself takes time. This coloring took me somewhere between 4 and 5 hours to create. The full recording of this, with every single pencil stroke recorded and every single colored pencil called out, is this month's special lesson over on Patreon at the Coloring Club. And I'm also going to share it with my YouTube channel members. And don't forget to grab your free download. Over at It's Easy to Draw Academy, we now have a new section called Pages and Guides. If you click on it and scroll down, you will see a bunch of free coloring page downloads, each of which has a tutorial that goes with it. So this page and this tutorial that you're watching right now are up there on that page. If you scroll even further down, there are pages that you can purchase that are specific to the Academy that you won't find anywhere else. I will be coloring those as well. I'm starting my waterfall coloring with white charcoal on lightly toned, slightly greenish tan-toned paper. The paper that I love working on these days is cardstock. My preferred type of cardstock these days is called Recollections, and it's available in pretty much any craft store in the United States, and it's available on Amazon. And the reason that it's my favorite paper is because it comes in a variety of colors, an endless variety of colors. You can get different sets in pastel tones, in darker colors. You can get just sepia, browns, you can get creams, you can get all sorts of creative colors. I have hundreds upon hundreds of different colors of this paper, and it's so much fun. The paper weight can be either 65, 67, or 80. Those are the most common paper weights for cardstock, and all of those are printer friendly for pretty much any modern desk jet or laser jet, so don't worry about this paper being too heavy. As far as white charcoal is concerned, that is my absolute favorite tool to start with, even though the rest of this composition will be done in colored pencils. If you don't have white charcoal, or if you don't like working with it, it's a very personal preference, you can do this step with any white pencil from any colored pencil set. Prismacolor white is perfect for this. White charcoal is also available in most craft stores and art stores, and it is also available on Amazon. I will throw links to the materials that I use in the video description, so if you guys want to use the same exact tools as I do, feel free to check them out and get your own versions of the same stuff. Now, the thing about coloring a waterfall is that we're not really coloring water. We're coloring an illusion of water that's cascading off the rocks and foaming and splashing and sprinkling all over the place. When we think of a waterfall, our mind goes towards water, right? If we're coloring water in a glass or a beautiful lake landscape, we think about all the green and aquamarine tones and all the beautiful reflections, but a waterfall is a force of nature. It's a fragment, tiny fragment in time that we're capturing, and most of it is foam. So what we're really coloring is white. There's hardly any blue or green in this at all. The way that waterfall illusions come across is by capturing the entire scene. So the good news is the waterfall itself is exceptionally easy to color because it's mostly white with some gradient transitions of a little bit of green, a little bit of blue, and a little bit of brown. The bad news is that you do have to color a full page illustration in order for this illusion to take effect. So I've created this beautiful illustration for you guys. I've intentionally kept it in grayscale so that it's easier to follow. But having followed this guide, if you are a person who is interested in freehand drawing, then you can recreate a similar illusion following all the same exact steps, just adding your own gradient transitions and your own shadows and shaping your own rocks instead of following my grayscale illustration. The obvious burning question, of course, is can this be done on white paper? And the answer is still yes. Any of the coloring illusions that I share with you can be achieved on white paper, but why? Look at the page before us. For us to leave the white of the paper just on the waterfall and color everything else in this grayscale with beige and gray would take a lot longer than 4 or 5 hours than this coloring will take. It will take days. So why work against the process when you can work with the process? Adding white two-toned paper is much more pleasant, much faster, and honestly comes across as a much more professional look than the other way around. When we're adding white to the flow of the water, it also looks more natural. It's like the white of the water is actually there. When you do it backwards, some of this realism, it's just not going to come across as nicely. The next hour of this project, I spent pre-priming everything that is rock with 2 colors, a mid-tone brown and a light teal. The light teal that I'm working with is called Jade Green, but make no mistake, there's nothing green about this pencil. When I teach my courses, when I teach my students over at the Academy, I emphasize very strongly not to rely on pencil names, pencil brands, and color names. In my Academy, I teach how to calibrate your colors, how to choose the right colors, and how to know what kind of tones and tints and shades to use for which occasion. Now that the priming of the rocks is done, I can spend a little bit more time adding the greenery and also defining the rocks. Remember that I mentioned that it's the surroundings of the waterfall that create the illusion of this falling water and the color of this falling water. We must add all of the scenery first so that we know which colors from the surroundings we can actually infuse into our waterfall. So I'm working with several greens here, I'm working with several browns, and I am constantly infusing the surroundings of this waterfall with a light blue. Now that blue is not necessarily the color of the water. In my mind, that blue is more of an atmospheric perspective effect that's happening around the water and in the distance. But a little bit of the blue is also coming from the water. So notice that as I'm adding colors to the trees and to the rocks, I'm also bringing in a lot of the same colors into the water, but I'm bringing them in so gently and so lightly. I'm never actually coloring over the white. The water still comes across as if it's mostly white. I'm also doing a lot of work here with what I call blender pencils. For my blender pencil, I'm using Cloud Blue. This is an extremely pale light blue Prismacolor pencil that I love using as a blender for effects such as water, clouds, and fog. And I'm also adding quite a bit of this light green everywhere. The closer we get to the foreground, the more we can see the definition of the boulders and the rocks that are in the middle of our flowing stream. And I imagine that there's a lot of moss and algae. I imagine these rocks to be super slippery and dangerous. And all of that green slime that we see on the rocks, I see it everywhere. So we'll see it a little bit through the water as well. And that's why it's important to add a little bit of green there. Additionally, we have all this green in the leaves and the trees around the waterfall, and some of that will be reflected in the water as well. So that's why the green is there. The brown streaks in the water are not from dirt or mud in my situation, in my imaginary waterfall scene, but they are the rocks that we can see through the water a little bit. So we have the slimy green from all the algae and the moss. We have the brown, which is the brown of the rocks that we can see through the water. And we have a little bit of the blue, which is a combination of atmospheric perspective and a little bit of the blue coming from the water itself. Whether you're at the white stage, the blue highlights, the green add-ons, or the brown rocks stage of the waterfall, make sure to always follow the direction of the water with your strokes. That's extremely important. It is the strokes of our pencil that suggest where the water is flowing. In this case, a lot of the information is already given to you on this illustration. I made sure that there are enough hints here with my grayscale strokes to tell you which way the water is flowing, or how intensely it's flowing, how it's flowing around the rocks. But again, if you're doing this from scratch, and I hope you do, I hope you try this. I hope after coloring with my guide, you actually take a blank piece of paper and try doing this yourself with your own colors. Maybe rearrange the waterfall a little bit, maybe work from a photo and copy a waterfall. But now that you see some of the things that I'm paying attention to in my coloring, maybe you can apply that to your own creations, to your own copies of photographs. And copying from a photograph is such a great way to practice and such a great way to learn. The darker or the more vivid you make the surroundings of the waterfall, the more the waterfall itself will stand out. Additionally, when you're very close to being done, there are two things that are going to need some attention. First, it's possible that a lot of the white either got covered over with too much shading of green and blue and brown, or you may have smudged a lot of the white just by rubbing your hand over the page. If that happened, worry not. Just bring in your white Prismacolor pencil again and clean up all the white areas. Do be mindful, if there are any colored pencil marks over the white charcoal, you can't bring the white charcoal back again. It only works directly on the paper, and that's it. We can put colored pencils over it, but not the other way around. However, regardless of how you created the original white effect, you can always bring in a white Prismacolor pencil and clean up your white that way. Super easy. And the other thing to pay attention to at this stage is the mist. So again, with any kind of a blender pencil, either your cloud blue or your Prismacolor white, create that slight misty effect around the area where the impact of the water is on the rocks, the most of the impact. And in this case, it's this middle area right here. Notice that it's the lightest area on our canvas. There's nothing lighter here than the center part of the waterfall where all the mist is. That's the illusion that we're trying to capture. So this was a very quick, very basic overview of a waterfall. I hope this whet your interest in realistic illusions, with colored pencils. If you want to color along with me to create this exact waterfall illusion, then again, that's up on Patreon this month in the Coloring Club. If you are a member of this YouTube channel of the tier called Top Supporter, you will have this video waiting for you already. I hope you enjoyed the show. Whatever your level of interest and skill is, go ahead and grab this page and give it a shot. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy my videos, please remember to give them the thumbs up. If you don't subscribe to the channel yet, you got nothing to lose, hit that subscribe button. Please consider becoming a channel member for special recordings like this one and other gifts. And come over to Patreon. Happy coloring, and I'll see you in the next video.